that we haven't already done. We've made, doors bulletproof, but Allie reported that her witness said that he saw the shooter go around to a window. Well, how many bulletproof windows can you put into schools all over America? You can't. You've got to get to the root problem. There's no more bubble wrapping or Kevlar wrapping that we can do with schools and children. We've just got to stop this insanity, this gun violence, this teen angst, the terror that these teenagers are going through, and then the availability that they can do something about it with a weapon.
And like you said, Ashley, this really is an American problem. It appears to be uniquely American. I mean, right now we were talking about Uvalde, Texas, a week and a half ago. We were talking across the country to the Northeast in Buffalo, New York. We have really reported these mass shootings all over the country. And as you said, sadly, it's the same scene pretty much every time. Fill in maybe minor details that are different. So in this situation, talk to us about the investigation. I know that you said that you were on the scene at Sandy Hook when this happened in 2011. Very similar scenes, sadly. But talk about the investigation, where it stands right now, because of course this is such an immense investigation that will continue.
Yeah, so it will take some time, and the horror that I'm just thinking about right now is the off-site location where all of the parents of all of those children who go to that elementary school are waiting to find out if they'll be reunited with their children. And one by one, I remember it like it was yesterday, Nicole, but the parents that got word that they were not going to be reunited with their children, they watched all the other parents get notified and then leave that family reunification center. And they just kept waiting for their turn. And as that crowd got thinner and thinner,
yeah, Ashley, that gives me goosebumps. And I don't have children, but just thinking of, as you see the crowd get smaller, and your absolute worst fears realized.
Yeah, they described it in detail, and I'm glad they did, because everybody needs to know what's going on behind the scenes, right? It's not just a news story on cable today. It's someone's hell, and it's a lot of people's hell today. But
Ashley, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
They waited for their turn, and ultimately realized, it took hours and hours of this hell for these parents, Nicole, before finally the tens and tens of people finally in that center were, left and got their good news. And then eventually, the new reality for the Sandy Hook parents set in, and that was that they were going to live their lives now with a horrifying new normal and try to change this for the rest of the country. And I can only imagine what they're thinking right now as they see, well, I guess, what we've gone through in vain, because all these parents are going to go through the exact same thing again.
And Ashley, talk about that. I know that you have interviewed so many people. I know that you spoke with a first responder who had to make that horrible, horrible notification.
There were so many of them, right? Like, this was just huge. I got to be honest, I think the worst moment I went through, other than those first few hours at Sandy Hook, was watching a few days later as a collection of hearses drove through the center of town with tiny caskets in them. You could see it. It was almost like it was a movie. It didn't seem real. These hearses, one after another, and everybody, all the media, all of us who were gathered, just fell absolutely silent from this image of these little coffins going by in these hearses. You could see the coffins through the window. And it was a parade of horrible, right? A parade of horribles, one after the other. We were never let inside that school. That they razed the school, they demolished that school. My thought is that likely this school will ultimately be demolished as well. There's just so many things that these people are about to go through that the Sandy Hook parents can literally write the playbook for them, but they shouldn't have to. They just shouldn't.
They shouldn't. And it only gets worse. And I've been to the funeral of a child, and I can tell you it is one of the worst things seeing that little casket. Ashley, talk about the suspect, what we know so far. Police authorities saying that he appears to have shot his grandmother, hearing from authorities that his girlfriend threatening to finish what he started. Just talk to us about this suspect and what we know. I mean, we know that he's deceased, appears to have been shot by a member of the SWAT team.
Yeah, there will be a huge investigation into this, Nicole. Just the fact that he's dead doesn't mean that this isn't a huge police action, right? Because you don't know what else there is. You don't know if this girlfriend, who seems to know what is going on and seems to have a motive to continue it, she will be a fountain of knowledge, hopefully. And who knows, there may be charges against that young woman if she helped, if she furthered any of this, if she was a cheerleader for any of this. There may be some kind of, of conspirator charge that she will face for this. I have no idea if she's just spouting or if she actually did, help in the advancement of this hideous demonic plot. We know that there was a shootout from the witnesses prior to him entering the school. There was a shootout with authorities who were in pursuit, this according to witnesses, who were in pursuit of him after the killing of his grandmother. And again, so much of this just parrots what happened with Adam Lanza. He killed his mother. He went right to the school. He shot out the windows of the secure door in the front of the elementary school. He got in and he went, specifically door to door, and mostly for first graders. I don't know what this man's motive was or what his strategic plan was, or if he even had one. But there will be an investigation of every single aspect of his life, every single person he's spoken to, every friend of his, every family member, if there are any left. And they will try to figure out a number of things. Did anyone sell those guns illegally? Was anybody else responsible for this? Did anybody contribute to the mass murder of these children in any way, even if it was encouragement? Right. Because we know through Michelle Carter, encouragement matters. So well, Ashley, that's where this is going.
Absolutely. Please, Ashley, stick around. I'm sure we will check back in with you. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Ashley Banfield, host of NewsNation's Banfield. We're going to continue our breaking news coverage of this mass shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas, when we come back. Welcome back to NewsNation Rush Hour. Our coverage continues of this breaking news happening this morning at around 11:30 Central Time. A mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas, happening at an elementary school, Robb Elementary School. We know that 14 children are dead, one teacher also deceased. Right now, we also know a 10-year-old girl and a 66-year-old woman are in critical condition. As you can see, correspondent Robert Sherman is live on the scene. Robert, what can you tell us right now?
I can tell you right now, Nicole, that the scene that we are here at, you only have to stand here for a few moments to realize just how heavy this whole situation is. A moment ago, we saw a car slam on its brakes about a block away, and a child ran out sprinting towards the school. This is a small community of only 16,000 people. This is a fluid scene. There's a lot that we don't know at this hour, but here's what we definitively do know. This afternoon, we know that 14 children were killed while they were here at this elementary school that's behind us, 2nd to 4th graders. One teacher was killed as well. The governor tells us that law enforcement responded to the scene. The shooter, they told us, is now dead. There are 2 more people who are currently in critical condition over at the nearby hospital, a 66-year-old woman and a 10-year-old child. This is a small community. This is a tight-knit group of people who live here and who go to this school on a consistent basis. And you can see just walking down the street here how there are families that are standing in their yard gazing incredulously at this scene that is right behind us. Many of them cannot believe that this would happen here in their own community. We know that we are going to be getting new information from local law enforcement shortly. But again, you cannot emphasize enough that there is a lot of information that we still don't know. We've seen people try to speculate or guess at a motive. We are not going to be doing that. Certainly that will become more clear in the coming days. Right now, everything is quite opaque. There are a lot of questions here. Why did this happen? But at the end of the day, the reality is 14 children dead, one teacher. Those families will not be holding their loved ones tonight. And there are 2 more families who are holding on desperately, waiting anxiously to know about their loved ones at the nearby hospital. Nicole?
And Robert, as you speak to us, we are taking a look at pictures from earlier today from the scene. Just absolutely tragic. Robert, I know you're live there on the scene. Describe for us what we're seeing now. At this point, we're about 5.5 hours removed from the actual shooting. So describe what you're seeing on the ground.
Well, here right now, we've seen that this whole area has been cordoned off. For the most part, where we're standing right now is a heavy media presence. This is a very residential neighborhood. You go street to street here, and it's all homes. And again, you see a lot of people who are just standing on their front lawns, just waiting to know more information. And that is the thing that is so abundantly clear down here, Nicole. There are still so many questions. There's still this utter disbelief in the air that something like this would be happening in this small of a community, a town of 16,000 people, just a couple hours away from San Antonio, a little over an hour away from the U.S.-Mexico border, really just caught in between all these different communities. Many very clearly distraught by what has happened here today. Most of the families we know are over at the reconciliation area, where a lot of these families are regathering with their other loved ones in order to learn more information, reconnect with their children who are inside. So you don't see much in the way of families out here at this hour, just a lot of stunned faces from neighbors.
And for our viewers at home, we do have a little bit of a delay with Robert Sherman, so that's why it's taking a bit of time for him to answer. But Robert, I do want to ask you, because you are NewsNation's border correspondent, you are many times in these towns that are very close to the U.S.-Mexico border. Kind of talk to us about some of the aspects that would make Uvalde unique, because it is essentially a border town.
Right, a little over an hour away from the U.S.-Mexico border. A lot of these communities have a heavy Hispanic influence here. We know that for a fact. We know a lot of these towns, again, removed from a lot of the major metropolitan areas such as San Antonio. So, I mean, you look around here, it is so peaceful. It is quintessential suburban America here. When you walk around this community, it's just such a small, quiet town that's just caught right in the thick of this utterly horrific scene. And you heard the governor say earlier that situations like this, they are unacceptable. They cannot be tolerated here in the state of Texas. He said that law enforcement action going forward will be swift as they try to get to the bottom of this whole situation. I just cannot emphasize it enough, Nicole, is that especially when we see situations like this, there's a lot of speculation that swirls. But we're taking this one step at a time, going with what we know definitively at this hour and what is crystal clear, not what is opaque.
Absolutely. Robert Sherman live for us at the scene in Uvalde, Texas. Robert, stick around. We're obviously going to check back in with you. Thank you for that. All right, let's listen to Robert there mentioning that Texas Governor Greg Abbott had spoken about this tragedy approximately an hour ago. Let's listen in to what the governor had to say.
The shooter was Salvador Ramos, an 18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered into the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a handgun, and he may have also had a rifle, but that is not yet confirmed according to my most recent report. He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly, 14 students and killed a teacher. Mr. Ramos, the shooter, he himself is deceased and is believed that responding officers killed him.
All right, so just hearing there from Governor Greg Abbott earlier today, that shooter, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, actually his last name, he is deceased there at the scene, entering with a handgun, possibly an assault rifle. We know that AR-style magazines were found on the scene. We want to bring back former FBI agent Phil Andrew to talk to us about this situation. And Phil, at this point, we're about 5.5 hours removed from the scene. Obviously, very heavy law enforcement presence. We're taking a live look right now. Obviously, that law enforcement presence will not be leaving anytime soon. Talk to us about the steps happening right now in this investigation, and then kind of walk us through tonight, tomorrow. How does this investigation play out?
Right now, law enforcement is gathering all the evidence. Even with the deceased assailant, they're going to be lifting every clue that might lead to motive, support, anybody that provided any kind of assistance to this person, anybody that knew the events before they took place, and that will give us some clues as to motive, any accomplice. So all that stuff's going to be combed over. So they're going to be taking pictures of the crime scene. They are going to be combing through digital evidence. They're going to tear through his social media. They're going to interview neighbors. They're going to review any electronic footage of videos. And that's going to give us some insights. There's still going to be probably some gaps, even this evening, as they offer that information in their report. So it could be some time before we learn anything about motive, and it's too early to speculate.
Oh, absolutely. Way too early to speculate on motive. And Phil, obviously right now, and Robert alluded to this, but we know in addition to that heavy law enforcement presence, there's obviously a very heavy media presence at this time. But again, law enforcement not releasing a lot of information because this is an ongoing investigation. Talk a little bit about the logic behind that. Why, because we heard authorities come to the microphone about 30 minutes ago, didn't really say much, but talk about why that is.
It's important to be very disciplined about what information you provide. Because you don't want people leaping to any conclusions about the motive, creating additional fear. This could be as simple as a lone gun person who shot their grandmother and then had intention on going on a rampage. This could have been somebody that just saw this opportunity, kind of a suicide by mass shooting scenario. We just don't know. And there's no point in creating public fear where there's no reason to, or any assumptions about whether this was somebody that came over the border. By all information right now, it's somebody that was in their community. Then, in all likelihood, given the stats around these mass shootings, 2/3 of them, we have some pre-incident indicator where we knew. In some states, we have the ability to remove firearms from those that are at risk to themselves and others. Texas is not one of those states. So they don't have a tool like that. But could law enforcement have done something earlier? Could someone in the community have alerted law enforcement to prevent this? Those are all things we're going to learn. And tragically, in the vast majority of instances, that is the case. We knew something that could have prevented this, but we didn't get the information to the right people.
And I just want to describe for the audience what you're seeing. As you see right there, behind that tree, there is a black pickup truck. Now, the suspect in this, Salvador Ramos, was the subject of a bolo. Be on the lookout. Authorities say he shot his grandmother shortly before this incident here at the school. And he was fleeing from authorities, crashed his pickup. That is why there you can see that presence there at the truck. Got out of the truck with his weapons, with his ammunition, and then ran toward the school. Authorities also saying that he attended this school. We don't know. We know he was 18 years old, so we don't know how many years he attended this school, but we did learn that he attended the school. We know that Robb Elementary enrolls about 600 students. It is only grades 2nd through 4th. You know, and Phil, we heard from Allie Bradley, who was an independent journalist on the scene there for us. She spoke with some eyewitnesses. So we heard from an eyewitness, Juan, who was working on a house nearby, because again, we heard from Robert Sherman, this is a very residential area, as many times elementary schools are. They do tend to be in neighborhoods. Working on a house nearby, happened to see all of this as it unfolded. Now, again, we don't know the shooter's motive. We don't know what was in his head. We still have so much left to learn. But Juan's saying that he's not sure that the shooter was even targeting the school, that he thinks he appeared to have crashed his truck, got out as he was fleeing. The school happened to be there. Again, we don't know. I don't want to speculate on that. What we do know is we heard from the governor right there. This shooter had a handgun. The shooter appeared to have a rifle. We know that AR-style magazines were found inside that school. So we know that this shooter was very much equipped to do a lot of damage. In fact, did do a lot of damage.
Absolutely, and with tragic consequence here. And so, like, we're going to be looking into that. The investigators are going to want to understand that. But we also, you know, we need a national conversation on what we want to do in terms of prevention and properly using threat assessments. When somebody presents themselves at risk to themselves or others, action has to be taken. Guns need to be removed from those individuals. And again, some states have that tool. Other states don't. There are a lot of law enforcement actions can be taken when law enforcement's given the proper information by citizens. So, and we see that statistically break down every single time in these scenarios where somebody had some information and they didn't share it. So we're going to see as this breaks down if this is the unusual one where, you know, this is something that just slipped through the cracks, right, or we had opportunities to prevent this. And we have to take those opportunities to prevent this very seriously because of the tragic consequences. And I'll tell you, it's not just the victims here. That being a first responder and rushing into an environment where that many young people and a teacher have been killed has absolutely traumatic impact on those first responders.
Oh, absolutely. So much trauma here inflicted. And I think, Phil, you know, something you said talking about the warning signs. I mean, yet another mass shooting a week and a half ago in Buffalo, New York. And as we've reported, there were warning signs. You know, but yet that shooter allegedly went on to carry out an attack that killed at least 10 people. So again, not that we know, I don't know that we even know what the answer is in all this. Obviously, something has to be done because we continue to report. Phil, I don't even know at this point how many mass shootings now I have interviewed you on specifically, where we have breaking news and then we bring you in to talk about this. And it's the same conversation every time at its core. And I truly don't know what the answer is here. Phil, talk to us about how, you know, this is every parent's worst nightmare. We know that kids are trained. They do these active shooter drills, something that I never had to do, something I assume that you never had to do in school. But how, when you have a crime scene that's this large, you know, authorities are coming in, they're not sure what they're going to find, they're not sure what they're responding to. We know that when authorities did arrive on the scene, there were at least 14 people down, 14 children down, 1 teacher down. How do they secure a scene that is so large, that is so massive, where things are unfolding and it's so hard to know what's going on?
Well, one thing is, as law enforcement has evolved to address this threat, once we know that it's happening and where it's happening, law enforcement has developed really high-level tactics for responding to active threats. So we're good at responding to it. It's just a question of how much mayhem has been inflicted before they get there and are able to take down the assailant. And then in terms of securing a large environment like this, that's why you see so much response. One, for that immediate active response to secure the situation, but then you need lots of law enforcement to establish a perimeter, to begin the investigative process where photos, measurements, analysis is going to take place in case there is additional investigation required, in case this needs more analysis as it moves into court.
And so, Phil, what will happen later on tonight as this investigation enters the evening hours after the sun has gone down? What happens today?
They're going to try to do everything they can to finish their investigation before night falls. And that's why you've seen such a surge of investigators on the area, on just the investigative piece, not just the active piece. And I would expect that by nightfall, they will have accomplished much of that investigation. This is not going to be a school that opens anytime soon. The sad truth is that there's a lot of cleanup that needs to take place. And that needs to be done. That will probably be activated pretty quickly after the investigative portion finishes, and they're going to present what they know to the public. So I wouldn't expect that to take too many more hours into the evening. Though this is a large area, it looks like most of the actual mayhem was conducted in a much smaller area.
Absolutely. Former FBI agent Phil Andrew, thank you so much for your time. And we're taking a live look now. You can see residents there just absolutely stunned. This mass shooting happening in Uvalde, Texas. As we go to break, we're giving you a live look. This is the White House. You can see the flag is at half-staff there. We know President Biden is going to address the nation about this shooting at 8:15 Eastern, 7:15 Central. We'll be right back.
who are in the hospital at this hour. We also know 2 police officers were injured in this attack. The governor says that both of them will be recovering and everything will be fine on that aspect. But these are the casualties of what this horrific situation has yielded. This is such a small, tight-knit community here in Texas, and we know that there are just 2nd to 4th graders that are in this elementary school, a couple hundred students at most that attend this school every single day. You can just see it on the faces of all these people who are here, just the utter shock. It seems as though that we go through this every couple years, and that's because we do. This is the largest school shooting that we've seen since 2018 with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. But of course, many of us hark back to the memories of Sandy Hook, and that's where a lot of the emotions continue to go. That being said, we have heard condemnations come out from several elected officials around the state. The Houston mayor, for one, saying how many more senseless people need to die at the hands of gun violence. It is important to remember that we do not know the motives of the shooter at this hour, despite the fact that many are trying to speculate and many are guessing at what this was. That's something that we are not going to do. We don't know why this happened. We do know what happened. We do know that this was just supposed to be an everyday Tuesday here at this small elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. And now, all of a sudden, 14 children are not coming home tonight. 1 teacher is not hugging their loved ones this evening. 2 families are holding on anxiously, praying for good news to come out of the emergency room. Nicole?
Absolutely. A 10-year-old girl, 66-year-old woman, both in critical condition right now at the hospital. Right, Robert, as you mentioned, we know about 600 students enrolled at Robb Elementary. We've also learned that school was about to be dismissed for the summer in about 2 days. So this tragedy happening right before the summer break. Robert, as you mentioned, you know, sadly, this is not the first school shooting that you have covered, not the first mass shooting that you have covered. Kind of walk us through what happens from your perspective as a member of the media live on the scene there. Kind of describe that media staging area and describe what happens next.
Yeah, we do see a lot of the local news stations that are here on the scene right now, as it is this situation is starting to swell from a media coverage standpoint. We'll tell you this, is that in our experience in the past, is that you see in these initial moments, it is the constant scramble to learn more information and to answer a lot of these questions that all of us desperately want to know. We want to know why this happened. We want to know what is going to happen going forward. We want to know if there are going to be any policy changes or if there was some specific reason behind this, that all this happened. Those are questions that we do not have answers to at this hour. But it is this mad rush in order to try and learn more. And all of this is going to become more clear over the coming hours. We are expecting to learn more information from local law enforcement, and we know that they are working to learn more as well. Governor Abbott says that he's deploying the state's full resources to this. The Texas Department of Public Safety, that's for those of you who are not from the state of Texas, those are the Texas State Troopers. They will be working very closely with this investigation, as is local law enforcement. We know the Texas Rangers are going to be heavily involved in this investigation. That is the investigative branch of the state law enforcement agency. So everyone is working to learn more information. But again, the facts that we know at this hour already so horrendous enough, and we are working to learn more moment by moment. Nicole?
Absolutely, Robert. And I know when it comes to the shooter, we learned from the governor, 18 years old. His name, Salvador Ramos. He is deceased at the scene, shot by a member of the SWAT team. We also learned that he may have attended this elementary school. Again, we don't know his motive behind this, but we've also learned that prior to the mass shooting, he was the subject of a be on the lookout, a bolo, after shooting his grandmother. Right now, waiting to learn whether or not she survived her injuries. But Robert, I know that as a border correspondent, you are often in these border towns, and we know that Uvalde is about an hour away from the U.S.-Mexico border. It's about 85 miles west of San Antonio. Kind of describe for us, just walk us through what a town like Uvalde is, being so close to the border. What is that like?
Well, you drive through this town, and again, you know, as we said before, this is quintessential suburban America. You look around, and there are all these beautiful small homes that are here. This is a very quiet community. Now, of course, you know, we have had local officials from this community on our show in the past to talk about the border. We don't see any connection between the border and this case at this hour, despite the fact that there were speculations of that earlier. There is no connection that we've been able to substantiate to this point. But you see towns like this, and again, you know, it's all you have to do is look at the faces of some of the local residents who are walking by here, and it is just utter distraught that this would happen in this town of 16,000 people, again, removed by about an hour and a half, 2 hours from San Antonio, Texas. This is just a small, quiet community here, and this whole community trying to come together, trying to come to grips with what has happened here. But at this hour, there are many more questions, and there are very few answers. Nicole?
Robert, you're so right about that. We are, so a little bit of more information is trickling out now. We've just learned, we told you there was a 66-year-old woman in critical condition, as well as a 10-year-old girl in critical condition. But we have now learned that there are additionally 2 more adults in critical condition. We don't know yet the sex, the gender, nor the ages of those people. But we know 3 adults currently in critical condition, as well as a 10-year-old girl. Of course, this situation continues to evolve. We can tell you, we know that 14 children are dead. 1 teacher is dead after a shooter entered Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas this morning at about 11:30 local time. Still waiting on a motive. Obviously, a situation that continues to unfold. We are staying all over this. We will bring you the very latest when we come back. This breaking news, another mass shooting happening in America. This one happening in Uvalde, Texas, around 11:30 local time, happening at Robb Elementary. As you can see on that banner across your screen, right now we can confirm 14 children and 1 teacher were shot and killed. We know that the shooter, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, is deceased as well. Authorities saying he was killed at the scene by a bullet from a member of the SWAT team after a shootout. Governor Greg Abbott giving an update about an hour and a half ago, saying that Ramos inside the school was found with a handgun, possibly with an assault-style rifle as well. We know that several AR-style magazines were found on the scene. In addition to the 15 people who are now dead, we know that 3 adults and 1 child are currently in critical condition at the hospital. Right now we know a 10-year-old girl, one of the hospitalized, a 66-year-old woman, also hospitalized in critical condition. We are waiting to find out the gender and the ages of the other 2 adults who are currently in critical condition. We know there was a staging area set up away from the school. At this point, all of the parents have been reunited with their children. Right now, authorities not giving a lot of information, waiting sadly to notify those families who will not be reunited with their loved ones tonight. We have several journalists live on the scene. One of those, independent journalist Allie Bradley, has been there since shortly after this happened, around 11:30. She was there shortly after it happened, gathering info, talking to eyewitnesses. Let's listen to one of her interviews with one of those eyewitnesses.
Now I would like to bring in actually a gentleman that's standing right here that's actually working on the home right next door. He heard everything. He saw a lot of the situation happen. Can you kind of just describe what you saw happen here, sir?
Yeah, so he crashed into the ditch, and 2 guys from the funeral home went out there to check on him, and he fired at them. He fired shots.
So he fired shots outside before he even went into the elementary school.
Correct.
Did you see him go into the elementary school?
Yeah, I seen him jump the fence right here. He jumped the fence, and he had a backpack, and he had a rifle, and he jumped the fence, and he went to that corner up there, to the back corner on the right, and I believe he shot in there into that window back there, and that's when the cops pulled up over here, and then there was one UCISD police that went all the way in there, and I think that's what caused him to come back this way.
Okay, so he was kind of drawn out by officers a little bit.
By the UCISD police, right?
Okay.
All right, that was an interview happening about an hour ago with independent journalist on the scene, Allie Bradley, speaking with an eyewitness to the tragic events that unfolded today. You're taking a live look at some cell phone video shot earlier today. Obviously, a very chaotic scene. Allie, you've been doing great work out there. Tell us what we know so far about the shooter, Salvador Ramos.
Well, actually, I just talked to another eyewitness who witnessed the speeding by of his vehicle and watched it crash, and he actually went to school with him. He is 18 years old now, this young man that I talked with, and he says he hasn't been in school with the suspected shooter for the last 2 years, so he believes that he dropped out of school. But I asked him, was there any indication that this is a person that would have done something like this, that would have gone into an elementary school and killed 14 children and a teacher and his grandmother? And he said, no, not at all. He was pretty quiet. He said that there was nothing, he used the word sketchy, that showed anything that would have been a reason that he would have kind of been, been watched that would have, potentially have done something like this. And now, at this point, he said it's really hard because this is such a small community, and he watched the vehicle speed by, and he said we see a lot of pursuits out here. A lot of human smuggling and drug smuggling pursuits happen in these small communities. So he thought nothing of it, but he had the same exact story as Juan, the gentleman that you just heard from. Reiterate, they were not together when I heard these interviews, and they had the exact same story where the vehicle crashed. He got out, those funeral directors came out and kind of wanted to see if everything was okay, and that's when the shots started firing. And this young man actually watched him jump over the fence as well and get into those school grounds over there.
And for people watching at home right now, Allie, and I know that you can't see the screen, but we are taking a look at that black pickup truck. So you mentioned the grandmother. So for people who may have just tuned in, explain how the shooter's grandmother plays into all this. Explain how that black pickup truck, explain that chase. Just explain what happened before this mass shooting occurred.
So I actually just was by the grandmother's residence as well. That is another street that is completely blocked off that no one has access to, and it's about a mile from the scene. And both of these gentlemen said that it didn't look like he was going after the school, targeting the school, if you will. It was more like the truck crashed right there, and that was the building that he ran into after shooting and killing his grandmother about a mile down the road in that same neighborhood.
So shooting and killing his grandmother, and then there was a bolo, a bee on the lookout. That's why this chase was happening, correct? Because they were pursuing him for shooting and killing his grandmother.
I actually believe that he was a murder suspect already. I don't know if they were on the radar with the grandmother or if he had another charge. That's something I'm working to find out right now. Law enforcement are not really disclosing a lot of information, but he was a murder suspect, and it might have been from his grandmother, but those situations happen so closely, you know, and I don't know the timeline of that at this juncture right now.
Okay, and now I know you're working on that. Obviously, you know, this situation just continuing to unfold, so the suspect may or may not have been a murder suspect in something completely unrelated, but we do know that shortly before this mass shooting at the elementary school happened, he is accused of shooting and killing his grandmother, then fleeing that scene. So, Allie, I know that you arrived shortly after this tragedy occurred at around 11:30 local time there. Kind of walk us through what you saw when you arrived on scene.
Right when I arrived on scene, there was obviously caution tape set out, but it was not really far away from the scene, so I was actually able to get very close, and there were several different agencies that had responded. We saw Border Patrol, DPS is down here, local municipal law enforcement agencies are down here, the sheriff, but they also had several helicopters on scene. But right when I arrived on scene, there was a truck crashed with the wheels basically bent off on this, like, kind of bowed out on the side, and you could tell that that was where the vehicle had stopped and crashed after that pursuit. And you know, you could get very closely to everything, but some of the DPS officers, the troopers that I was talking to, they actually had blood on their clothing, that they were inside that building responding and working with these people that were hurt, and some that, of course, we now learn have lost their lives.
And such a chaotic scene. We know that there was a staging area away from the scene. We're taking a look at some of those faces of just absolute grief. Again, we know that this is every parent's worst nightmare. You send your kids to school to learn, think that they're going to be safe. Allie, I know that, again, there was that staging area away from the scene, but of course, I think people's natural reaction when something like this happens, they want to come to the school. They want to come to the scene of the crime. And you had a chance to speak to some of those family members, some of those residents in the neighborhood?
Yes, I did, actually. And there was another woman that actually just arrived not long after I had spoken with you guys in the last hour, and they actually were looking for their niece and nephew. They still hadn't heard what was going on with them. So, you know, we're talking about all these families have been reunited, but this woman just 10 minutes ago told me that she didn't know if her niece and nephew were safe. They couldn't locate them. They didn't know if they had been flown to San Antonio. They didn't know if they were at the Memorial Hospital. They couldn't locate them. So there are still a lot of distraught families out there, it appears, that don't know what's going on. But there was a woman who was running from the scene, and I stopped her. I said, "Ma'am, is your child okay?" And she said, "I don't know, but it's not my child." And she was on speakerphone with someone else. So this woman, I'm making the assumption that she lived nearby and was kind of checking on the situation for her mom, or for a friend rather. But I will tell you this: one of my sources is a Border Patrol agent who has a child that goes to that school, a third grade little boy, and the mom has been reunited with him. But I know I'm going out to their house to kind of talk with her a little bit, and it's 36 minutes away. These families aren't nearby. This isn't like these small, you know, cities that we know, that we're aware of, you know, the regular norm. These people travel pretty far for school. So this mom lives almost 40 minutes away to get here and respond to what was happening to her children. They didn't know if their child was safe for hours. The Border Patrol agent was telling me he did not know if his son was alive.
Absolutely terrifying. And Allie, you mentioned a source there, the Border Patrol agent who was a source. Talk about some of the information that he has given you so far.
Well, I have, you know, received the timeline basically of what's going on. I have seen that's what I've been able to really share with you guys of when this started and when they were responding. And, you know, they actually called in for additional armored vehicles. They had San Antonio police that they were going to be en route with tactical operators down here as well. So this source has been someone that I've cultivated over the last 9 months because I've been down here doing border coverage. You know, and all of these agencies responded rather quickly because they're down here for a different problem. They've been down here for months, either deployed under Operation Lone Star, or they've been down here federally as Border Patrol agents because of the influx of illegal immigration and smuggling situations that have been happening down here. So that I would say, you know, if there's one thing that was not positive, because that's the wrong word to use, but something that you know, that was nice that they were able to respond as quickly as they were because they were out here for a different crisis.
Right. You know, and I think something, we talk about the horror of this. We talk about this being, you know, every parent's worst nightmare. We have to remember this is an elementary school. About 600 students enrolled there. This is only grades 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So these are very young children who may not even truly understand what's happening. And Ali, I know you mentioned the fact that you saw law enforcement there. You saw that huge response. Did you happen to see any of the children as they filed out?
I did not. I was not there at that time. I didn't see any buses. I did see some helicopters take off, but I do not know if they were airlifting any children. I couldn't get close enough, and no law enforcement would confirm that with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Ali Bradley, independent journalist, doing excellent work out there. Thank you so much. Please stick around, and we will be back with more of this breaking news coverage. A mass shooting at a Texas elementary school. 14 children and 1 teacher confirmed dead. out of Uvalde, Texas. A shooting at an elementary school, 14 students killed, 1 teacher dead as well. We know right now 3 adults and 1 child, a 10-year-old girl, are currently in critical condition. We want to bring in now Hugo Avila. He is going to talk to us. His cousin is a teacher at Robb Elementary. His cousin is currently in surgery. Hugo, so we know that your cousin and one of the adults currently in critical condition in the hospital. I'm so sorry that your family is dealing with this. Talk about what you know so far.
Well, thanks be to God. She just got out of surgery about 10 minutes ago and is doing okay. She went through an intense surgery and is going to be okay. So thank God for that. Yep.
Absolutely. Do you know where she was hit? I'm assuming she was hit by gunfire?
She was shot in the stomach and the abdomen. Yep.
And tell us, how did you find out, Hugo? How did you learn about this? Was it from the news reports? Did you get a phone call? Kind of tell us what happened.
I got a phone. I was at the job site and I got a phone call. I was up cutting trees and it was such an odd place to get a phone call that's saying that hey, I heard your hometown. A guy from a neighboring town in Eagle Pass, Texas, which is about an hour from us, there in Uvalde, and he lives here where I live right now in Evansville, Indiana. And I called and asked if my family was okay, and I'm like, I assume so. I mean, why? And he's like, well, there was just a shooting at an elementary school. There's 14 people or some crazy number, and I could not believe. I was like, in Uvalde, really? So I called my mother, and she confirmed that your cousin Elsa got shot. She was taken to BAMC in San Antonio, Texas.
And we're so glad that she appears to have made it through surgery. She hopefully will make a full recovery. Hugo, how familiar are you with Uvalde, Texas? How have you been to the community?
I was raised there. I grew up there.
Okay. So when you heard that this happened at an elementary school, we know that there are about 600 students enrolled there, but this is only grades 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. I mean, I can't imagine that there would be that many elementary schools. This is a town of only about 16,000, right? So talk to us a little bit about, talk to us about that.
Yeah, Robb Elementary. I mean, I went to Robb, and I can get my how old I was when I went there, what ages, but I think it was 3rd and 4th grade, I believe. Mm-hmm. And it's changed a little bit now, but yeah, it was 3rd or 4th grade, and it's crazy to think that someone would do that in such a small community. I can't fathom what the community is going through, and
well, Hugo, talk to us about that, because you say you grew up there in Uvalde. You actually went to this elementary school. Talk to us about the community there. We know it's about an hour away from the border, about 85 miles west of San Antonio, but just talk to us about Uvalde, Texas. What is it like?
Well, Uvalde, it's known for, if people know, it's Matthew McConaughey's from there, and it's mostly Hispanic, Mexican, Mexican American community who hardworking.
Pretty tight knit community, would you say?
Pretty tight knit, absolutely tight knit. Everyone knows each other. Everyone helps each other. It was a beautiful place to grow up in. I loved growing up there.
And Hugo, talk to us. What was your reaction when you got that phone call? You're in Evansville, Indiana. You grew up in Uvalde. Your cousin works at that elementary school and was actually shot, now out of surgery after being shot in her stomach. What was your reaction when you learned about this?
I was like most anyone was shocked. I was like, really? I mean, okay, that happened, but I mean, my cousin. Like, you don't think that, such beautiful people, how that community can go through that. But yeah, I was completely shocked.
Do you know how long your cousin has been working there?
She's been there for a while. That from what I remember, and I remember she was a teacher when I was just a kid myself, and
wow.
So that's pretty much all I can say here as far as that's her and being a teacher there.
Right. Just such a shocking situation. Hugo Avila, his cousin, works at Robb Elementary, a teacher there. She was shot in her stomach. We're learning that from Hugo. She has now come out of surgery. She is expected to recover. Hugo, thank you so much for speaking with us. Again, our coverage will continue on this ever-evolving situation right now. Active investigation, 14 children, 1 teacher killed today in Uvalde, Texas at Robb Elementary after a mass shooter entered that school building. That's it for Rush Hour on Balance. News out of Uvalde, Texas. There was another mass shooting in America. This one happening at an elementary school, Robb Elementary, in the town of Uvalde, which is about 16,000 population. Right now, we know that 14 students and 1 teacher are confirmed dead. We know that 3 adults and 1 student are currently in the hospital in critical condition. We know that student currently hospitalized is a 10-year-old girl. We also know a 66-year-old woman is in the hospital. We just spoke to the cousin of one of those hospitalized adults. He tells us that she was shot in her stomach, that she successfully had surgery. She is now recovering. Again, 14 students killed today. We know the shooter, 1 teacher as well. We know the shooter is deceased, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos. Authorities say he was killed at the scene after entering Robb Elementary and after shooting and killing his grandmother. On Balance with Leland Vittert is next.
Where are they at?
This is the shootout, the moments that law enforcement confronted an 18-year-old carrying what appears to be at least 1 rifle in Uvalde, Texas. We do not know if this was before or after. He shot and killed 14 children, 1 teacher, injured a number of other children and a number of other adults, including 2 members of law enforcement. Good evening. I'm Leland Vittert. Sometimes on nights like tonight, you cannot make sense of evil, and evil has visited America once again, this time in Uvalde, Texas. That's 80 miles west of San Antonio. It's a town of only about 16,000 people, 5 elementary schools. So with 14 children dead, it is certain that everybody in town is either related to or knows someone who has died. They will now think of life before this day, May 24th, and life after this day in that city. And it is difficult to put into words the emotions that people there are feeling. Just about 5 hours ago, the text message went out to parents that no parent wants to hear that there is an active shooter at the school and to pick their children up somewhere else. Obviously, as we look at some of the emotional reunions, there are parents who showed up and found their children alive and well and scared. And there are the parents of 14 children who arrived to the most horrific news possible, that this man, 18-year-old Salvador Roma, shot and killed their children for, as far as we know, no apparent reason. Not as if there is ever a good reason or a justified reason, but tonight we have so many more questions than answers. The things that we don't know are absolutely incredible. Where the guns came from, what the motivation was, what happened before the shooting, anything about the police response. We do know that there was a Border Patrol tactical team called in that came to support the Uvalde police. It is a small town with a small police force and then a smaller sheriff's department there in the county. Robert Sherman has arrived on the scene. Robert, you and I have been on more scenes than we would like to count like this. I almost can't imagine the emotion that you're seeing right now.
Leland, you walk around this community and the school is right behind us, just off school property. You have all of these homes and you can see many of the residents. They want to know what has happened here just as much as any of us do at home. But you see the way that the unknown is eating at them and the reality is devastating them. Just when we first arrived here, we saw a car screeching on its tires and a child ran out, running directly towards the school. That sense of urgency to know more. You walk around here and you see people sitting on their front porch, their faces in their hands clasped together, completely broken by what has happened here. Even saw 2 gentlemen who are just sitting in their lawn chairs, dejected, don't know what to think, incredulous. That's how so many of the people here in this community are feeling today. The details that we do know, as you mentioned, the death toll, the injured, the impact on law enforcement here, horrendous by themselves. And those numbers continue to adjust and fluctuate over the span of time, seemingly moment by moment. We do know that the state of Texas is putting all of their assets forward to try and learn more of what happened. We know the Texas Rangers are going to be involved in this investigation. That is the investigative branch of The state of Texas's law enforcement agency, Texas DPS, is around here as well. There are helicopters flying in the sky. There's significant law enforcement presence at both the local and state level that are here today. And we have heard that the president is going to be weighing in on this at some point later tonight. So all levels of government are going to have some involvement, whether it's direct or whether it is through words and rhetoric. I would tell you this, Leland, is that you mentioned the things that we don't know. And all you have to do is take a quick glance on social media to see people trying to make sense of what happened. And when you and I have covered incidents like this is what typically happens. People try and connect dots. At this point, we have a finite number of facts. We're not going to speculate. We are not going to guess as to what the other pieces of this puzzle may be. What we do know is that there are over a dozen families that will not be holding their loved ones tonight. There are several more that are anxiously waiting and praying for good news to come out of the emergency room here. Leland?
Indeed, and well said. In fact, there are probably some families who are not sure whether their children are among the dead. Robert Sherman is there in Texas, where it's just now about 6 o'clock in the evening. You can see it's still light out. It is an hour later at the White House, 7 o'clock Eastern time. The flag is at half-staff there. The president is still on his way back from Asia. He's been briefed aboard Air Force One as we take a live look at the White House. He was overseas for about a week as the commander-in-chief, and now he returns to the United States to perform his other role, which is comforter-in-chief, a role he has largely not had to play so far in his presidency, in this sort of explicit way of the country experiencing a mass tragedy. The president speaks at about 8:15 Eastern. That is in about an hour from now. Marine One will land a little bit before that. The vice president has a previously scheduled event in about 15 minutes. We'll check in terms of what she has to say. Robert, in terms of what we do know, which, as you rightly point out, is precious little. Active shooter, law enforcement arrives at some point. They go into the school. They engage with the shooter. Salvador Ramos is now dead. As far as you've been able to talk to any of your law enforcement sources, there is no additional manhunt. They feel as though he acted alone and they understand and have contained the situation.
No, that is one of the few finite details that seems to be clear at this point, is that they believe that he acted alone.
Robert, I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second. Apologies, and head to the vice president, who's speaking now.
Are still coming in, and of course the president and I are monitoring the situation closely. So while we don't know all the details yet, we do know that there are parents who have lost children, families that have lost children, and their loved ones, of course, and many others who may have been injured. So I would normally say in a moment like this, we would all say naturally that our hearts break, but our hearts keep getting broken. You know, I think there's so many elected leaders in this room. You know what I'm talking about. Every time a tragedy like this happens, our hearts break. And our broken hearts are nothing compared to the broken hearts of those families. And yet it keeps happening. So I think we all know and have said many times with each other, enough is enough. Enough is enough. As a nation, we have to have the courage to take action and understand the nexus between what makes for reasonable and sensible public policy to ensure something like this never happens again. So the president will speak more about this later. But for now, I will just say to the people of Uvalde, please know that this is a room full of leaders who grieve with you. And we are praying for you, and we stand with you. And it is difficult at a time like this to think about much else. But I do look around this room, and I know who is here. And I know this is a room full of American leaders who know and have the courage to take a stand. And so let us, tonight, as we do every time we all get together, recommit ourselves to having the courage to take action. And so that does bring me to the leaders who are in this room and the leaders of APACS. And again, I want to thank Chairwoman Judy Chu for that kind introduction.
The Vice President now at a previously scheduled event. It's the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies that she is speaking at, talking about the shooting in Uvalde. Noticeably missing from her words was the word gun, but you did not have to go very far to hear her continue to say take action. Although, Robert, as you and I have been talking, action on what? Because so little is known about this situation, where the shooter got his weapons. Was there any warning signs that were missed? All things that, at least in the first couple of hours, there's just no way to know. Question just in terms of what, if you have to go to the very core emotional moment here, which is for the parents who are trying to pick their kids up and be reunited. The last day of school was supposed to be Thursday in Uvalde, Texas. This elementary school, K through 4, parents went to a civic center to go pick up their kids. Do you understand that all the kids have been picked up, or are there still parents waiting to find out?
Still a lot of question marks about that, Leland, and we can try and get a little more detail for you a little bit later today as to exactly if all of those kids have been picked up. We are seeing family members who are now starting to come to the scene looking for answers. People desperate to know what exactly happened here. We've talked with folks who said that they can't get any more information on what their loved ones are going through at this hour. So there are definitely people who have a lot of questions and are desperately wanting to know what happened to their loved ones. I would also point out to you, Leland, is that you look around this neighborhood here. We spoke with one woman who said that she attended this school, this elementary school. Her grandkids have attended that elementary school. Her whole family has attended this school. That really puts into perspective just how much of a tight-knit community this truly is. It's multi-generational. A lot of people here, they grow up in Uvalde and they don't leave. This is all they know. And you mentioned that Thursday was supposed to be the last day of school. On the minds of so many of these people are the summer plans and what's next for them and what adventures they're going to embark on. And now you see this utter incredulous sentiment in the air. People don't know what to make of what's going on. And as you said, with the finite number of answers that we have, people desperately looking for more information. Leland?
Yeah, for sure. Robert, keep up the good work. Come back to us as you get more. Thank you very much. To reset here right now, we're just about an hour away from hearing from President Biden. Marine One is taken off from Andrews Air Force Base. The president arrived back in the country just a couple of minutes ago from Asia. We understand while on Air Force One, he talked to Governor Abbott of Texas, offered any and all federal law enforcement help that he could, although it seems as though at this point this is so much more about offering comfort to the nation, which we'll hear from the president just in about an hour. The vice president at least foreshadowed some kind of demand by President Biden for, in her words, action, conceivably on gun control, which is calls that we have heard before at times like this. We bring in Colby Hall of Mediaite as we think about sort of how this event has unfolded over the past 5 hours. Colby, why in these initial hours is there such a reluctance to simply talk about that evil exists and there may not be much we can do about it, rather than try and score political points on it?
Well, it's a great question. And if I had the answer, I'd be worth a lot more money than I am right now. I want to start by saying, this is a really horrible event, and I feel like politics aside, I think we all feel pretty unmoored, right? I feel like our social fabric is sort of coming apart, and I think that informs a lot of the talking heads you see on cable news who, firsthand, are put on air with barely any facts to their, on their fingertips, and are left purely to speculate.
Yep.
And fill air. And so what happens people sort of go back to their, well-worn talking points, which end up coming across, as political. I will say I watched a lot of coverage across the 3 cable news networks, and I was somewhat surprised that I heard less political conversation and more policy conversation, which, maybe I think policy and politics get mixed up. But I think you saw conservative-leaning media talking about the need to arm teachers and secure our schools. And of course, you saw more mainstream left-leaning media talking about access to guns. And those are policy conversations. I don't know how much you can talk about that evil exists.
Yeah, no,
I think that mental health is a real issue as well.
Yeah, it's hard, and we don't know so many of the answers. We have no idea what policies would have solved this problem, because we don't actually know. As we look at Salvador Roma, we don't know how he got the guns. We don't know his mental health background. We understand that he is from Uvalde. This is now on Mediaite right now. Texas elementary school shooter apparently messaged woman on Instagram about plans for massacre. I got a lil secret, he wrote, and then you all have published pictures of weapons that he allegedly posted as well. We've seen this too many times, right? Of people who, right before these shootings happen, there is that sort of moment, a couple of hours perhaps, that they telegraph what they're about to do.
Right. And, there was an immediate reaction in the media to wonder, I'm sure, whether this guy close to the border, there was a similar shooting in El Paso like that in Buffalo, like, was this a great replacement theory motivation? I don't know, but it seems like what this guy had in common with Buffalo was that he was messed up in the head, that he was crazy. And, I think that we are struggling as a society to figure out how we deal with, 18-year-olds go through a really difficult time generally, especially in age of social media. And a lot of people are really unhinged and isolated. And where there used to be sort of, guardrails, whether it was church or families or communities, a lot of those things have sort of abated and gone away. So all we can do now is look back at these clues of all we can see is that this guy was messed up and he did an unthinkable act. And, we have to have a transcendent moment. We have to have some sort of like come to Jesus moment where we throw it all out on the table. Like we really are failing our children if this is going to happen. And, I thought, Kamala Harris, the vice president, did a decent job of expressing her concern and the gravity of the moment without getting political. But as you said, it seems as though, and I don't think President Biden will go to guns, because I think he's more of a healer and he's pretty good at that, or at least he has been earlier in his life. But yeah, I mean, to your point about media, no one can really win. There's no real way to make sense of this sort of tragedy.
Especially in these first few hours, it's impossible. And you pointed out very correctly that in the initial couple of hours of this, as is true with every one of these instances, that whatever the initial reports are, they are wrong. Initially, this was a shootout with Border Patrol of someone who was being chased. Turns out, at least as far as we know right now, that is not true at all. This is President Biden's tweet from Air Force One on his way home that we'll put up on the screen if we can. President Biden just spoke with Governor Abbott to offer any and all assistance he needs. This is from Kate Benningfield, the White House comms director, in the wake of the horrific shooting in Uvalde. There's the president. I can't think of another tragedy in quite the same way that President Biden has had to deal with, because this isn't like Afghanistan, where you're the commander-in-chief and the comforter-in-chief after the deaths of soldiers. This isn't like Ukraine, where you're rallying Americans. This isn't a financial crisis. This is trying to explain to Americans how we all deal with this heading into summer. And as Robert pointed out, that this innocence that is now broken without any answers. And I'm interested, you said you feel as though he will do that without going sort of to the political or policy route. Can you anymore, though?
I mean, I think he will eventually go. It will become a political conversation, immediately. And whether that, I guess what I should say is I don't think he'll open with that. He may mention it sort of later in his speech, or he may not mention it at all. I think this will prove to be a real test for Joe Biden from a sort of a public image perspective, because if you look up at old YouTube clips of Vice President Biden, grieving with parents who've lost their kids in war, it's really what he is best at. He's a deeply religious man, and he has lost loved ones, and he could, at a younger age, he was really able to connect and be truly empathetic in a way that you could not be moved. He's been through a lot, and being president and under attack and having all this stuff to deal with pays its price. It takes its toll. And so, does he still have it? I mean, we hope. And we shouldn't necessarily only look to him. We really should look to one another. And all of us try to, I think we all need to sort of drop our guard a little bit and really, this isn't just families in Uvalde that are grieving. I really feel that anyone who has a child and the entire society is really struggling with this, and this has been just one body blow after body blow, and whatever it is, let's throw it all out there and do. But this can't be the new norm. This just can't be the new norm. And
you make a great point about parents. That every parent knows what it's like to drop their kid off at school, and every parent fully expects every day to pick their kid up from school, and that not happening affects people in such a raw way. Colby Hall with us. Colby, thank you very much. Just now about an hour
Leland, thanks for having me.
Until we hear from President Biden. He's headed back to the White House. Flags right now are at half staff. You see a huge contingent of law enforcement in Uvalde as they start to investigate this. And as we point out, there are so many unanswered questions about where this shooter got the gun, what the warning signs were or were not, how he was able to kill so many so quickly before law enforcement got there, and then more about the shootout. And always in these situations, we will learn about incredible moments of bravery as law enforcement ran towards the sound of gunfire, incredible moments of bravery by teachers and by other people who tried to shield and protect children. We'll leave you, as we're hearing now, potentially new information about additional fatalities. Working on that through the break. We'll see you in a minute. Texas right now, where, if it is possible, the news has gotten worse. Multiple reports now that it is not 14, but 18 children and 3 adults dead in a school shooting at Robb Elementary that began this afternoon. Live pictures of the scene, small town, 16,000 people, now potentially 21 people dead. We knew of 14 kids and 1 teacher, now reports 18 children and 3 adults, possibly a number of law enforcement agents wounded in the shootout with the 18-year-old gunman who is believed to have acted alone. John Iannarelli, former FBI special agent, with us now. John, I said before the break, and as we watch some of the video of the shootout with the suspect, of all the things we don't know, we are positive that in the next few days, perhaps even hours, we will hear some incredible stories of heroics about law enforcement and about teachers who all ran to the sound of gunfire to try to protect these kids.
That's right. We spent over a year in this country vilifying police in many ways, and yet they're running towards the sound of gunfire to try to keep people safe. Likewise, the teachers, who it's not their job to step in front of gunfire, but yet they're trying to keep the children safe as well. There's a lot of heroes in this country who don't get the kind of attention they deserve on a regular basis.
What do you make of the sequence of events, at least as we understand it? Primarily that you have this moment of active shooter inside the school, local law enforcement heads there, and at one point the Border Patrol tactical team, which is a local group of Border Patrol agents that are specially trained, showed up and entered the school. We understand potentially at least 2 of them shot in the shootout. What does it tell you about that distance of time between reports of gunfire and a tactical team going in?
There's a saying in law enforcement that when seconds count, the police are only minutes away. And that's why, despite the great job law enforcement did of putting themselves at risk and jumping into the fray, in this country, sadly, we need to know how to protect ourselves and our loved ones. We need to make sure that we're trained in active shooter prevention and response. Schools are taking that seriously, but I'd like to see more effort in making sure that everybody in this country is properly trained so that when law enforcement arrives, they can do their job and everyone else is safe in the meantime.
Yeah, you have really, it's so hard in those moments when gunfire goes off to react in that way. This is what the vice president said a little earlier. Enough is enough. As a nation, we have the courage to take action and understand the nexus between makes for reasonable and sensible public policy to ensure something like this never happens again. We hear it after every shooting. At some level, when you're dealing with people who are so deeply mentally disturbed as you would have to be to walk into a school and shoot and kill 14 or 18 children, is there any kind of public policy that can stop true evil?
We talk about gun control every time something like this has happened, but in my career as both an FBI agent and a police officer, I didn't meet anyone who was mentally unbalanced who paid any attention to what the laws are. It's not to say there may be guidelines and rules we need to have in place and look at existing laws, but we're not having a conversation about mental health either and what we can do. We saw just last week in Buffalo with mental health issues and how this permeates in our society. I don't think we're a safer place than we were years ago when we had access to mental health hospitals. That's a conversation politicians don't want to have because it's complicated and expensive, but it's one we need to have.
So often, those difficult and expensive and nuanced conversations are the ones we're not willing to have that could prevent situations like this. Take me through the moments that we know are going to happen, which is the parents showing up at this civic center. There are hundreds of parents who will be reunited with their children, having experienced just horrific pain and anguish and fear. And then there are those who have not. And I'm also thinking about the law enforcement, the police, the SWAT teams, the FBI agents, everybody else who, as parents, go through and can't help but feeling these emotions. If God can't stop evil, law enforcement can't either. How do they deal and process this?
I think all of us who are parents are thinking about just bury that today after this terrible, terrible tragedy. Whether or not your child was injured in the shooting, God forbid, one of the people that were killed, everybody there is a victim. Everybody's going to have to process this emotionally, and some of this is going to be lifelong scars. And the ones who survive to have those scars, sadly, are the lucky ones in all this, as opposed to the tragedy of the children that were lost and the parents that have to live with that. All around, it's going to take time, it's going to take counseling, it's going to take resources. Leland, we're at the end of the school year. This should have been a time of celebration and excitement, getting ready for the summer. Now, those experiences have been marred forever, and in future years, you know that's going to come back to the thoughts of the children and the parents that were involved today.
Yeah, I just keep going back to all the things we don't know, what happened inside that school that may have saved a lot of lives, what may or may not have went wrong, the red flags, all these things, and then you think about these parents of 14 or 18 children who had summer plans, who knew what they were going to do to celebrate the last day of school on Thursday, who knew what they were going to do for Memorial Day. You almost can't think about it. We talked to Colby Hall earlier about how much easier it is to have the political debate, because as humans, we almost can't have the emotional connection to this and make it through. Just in the past couple of minutes, President Biden touched down on the South Lawn just now, and this is now official from the Texas Department of Public Safety. 18 students died, were shot and killed in the school in Uvalde, making it the worst school shooting since Sandy Hook in 2012, which is a sad and awful moment 10 years later. John, President Biden walked in a noticeably slow gait to his walk, according to the reporters who met him on the South Lawn, and told reporters he'd make public remarks later, 8:15 Eastern in the Roosevelt Room, 45 minutes from now, although he did not take any questions. John, right now we understand from people at the scene there that there is no search anymore for an accomplice or anything like this. They believe the gunman acted alone, the gunman's dead. Take us through the next 24, 48 hours from a law enforcement standpoint.
So law enforcement would have a high level of confidence to make that announcement that this individual acted alone.
Tell me what would they need to this early be able to make that determination?
Law enforcement may have had contact with this individual in advance and been aware of some issues. They certainly will have talked to anyone who knew this person, any immediate family members, etc., to get a concept of what's going on at the scene. Over the longer haul, what's going to happen is, right now, I guarantee the FBI is in the process of getting search warrants to be able to seize all the computers in the household and examine any communications this person had been engaging in, not only to make sure that he hasn't been in contact with somebody else, but also to look at what was he doing? Was he telegraphing things on social media? Was he doing internet searches on how to carry out these type of events? All that information will be important. Although the suspect is deceased in this case, you want to look at how you can prevent such future actions and what pieces may or may not have been missed.
We go back to that, how do we prevent these things? And still, I think about the first school shooting I ever knew about, which is where this really seared into all of our memories, was Columbine, and the lessons learned, and we keep getting better at it. But is there a common thread other than mental illness through all of these things that exist?
Many times the common thread is not only the mental illness, but the warning signs that were ignored. The fact that people actually communicated things. Last week, we saw the shooter had communicated messages to other people and on social media saying what he was about to do, yet no one took the time to contact law enforcement. The important thing to remember here is, if you believe something's amiss, that there's a potential threat, picking up the phone and calling law enforcement is not going to get somebody arrested. If it turns out to be nothing, nothing's going to happen.
I'm thinking about Parkland and other cases where people did call law enforcement and then it got missed and the dots didn't get connected. And is that, a failure of law enforcement, or is that the simple fact of the matter that law enforcement gets a zillion calls about people who say things and put crazy stuff on social media and then don't go do this, and least we turn into a 1984-like society where law enforcement visits everybody who says something that somebody doesn't like, that we can't prevent these?
Well, in Leland, the sad reality is there's only so much law enforcement resources. You're right. There's a lot of complaints made to law enforcement, but the ones that aren't made is what I'm concerned about. And even when it's made, it doesn't mean there's enough to actually take a person off the street. The hope is by talking to the person, you might trigger them to think twice and not think about it. In the Parkland case you mentioned, that person had been talked to numerous occasions. Law enforcement had been out there, but nothing had changed. There may have been other things that could have been done to prevent it as well. This is a problem not for law enforcement to solve. Law enforcement as shows up when this all comes together. Schools, parents, family, and friends, they know about this long before the cops arrive on the scene. People have to work together to address these issues.
Yeah, we always end up doing so many interviews afterwards where people say, oh, well, he was, everybody thought that this was going to happen, and then it does in some really awful cases. Hey, John, we appreciate you being with us. Thank you. And it goes without saying our thanks to those who we're watching on the screen right now who ran to the sound of gunfire. And as you point out, well, their scars will last for a while. The flag at half staff above the White House, the president ordered that lowered just a couple of hours ago on his way back from Asia. He will address the country about 30 minutes from now, as it is sadly official from the Texas Department of Public Safety that 18 children were murdered today, another 3 adults at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, a town of about 16,000 people. And now, as we look at that flag, we think about the families that will not have any children to put to bed tonight. Jorge Ventura on the scene with what his law enforcement sources are telling us about how law enforcement ran to the sound of gunfire when we come back. Sadly, now we can confirm to you what has now been the worst and deadliest school shooting in 10 years since Sandy Hook. At least 18 children dead, 3 adults in Uvalde, Texas. You can see them bringing in the massive lights for the investigation to continue. There was obviously shooting inside this elementary school, a K-4 elementary school, Robb Elementary School, and then a shootout outside with law enforcement. The sun sets in Uvalde just about an hour and 15 minutes or so from now. And this will be a long investigation into what happened, what went wrong, what went right, the heroes in this situation, and then obviously what motivated Salvador Ramos, 18 years old, who lived in Uvalde his whole life, to open fire and kill at least 20 people that he grew up with. Jorge Ventura, reporter for the Daily Caller, about as well sourced with law enforcement in South Texas as you get, just arrived on the scene. Jorge, I'm interested as you talk to all of your law enforcement sources today, what was their emotion like? And as they've dealt with the crisis on the border for so long, I can just imagine that this is something they never even expected, and it makes it all the harder.
It's a little noisier with the weather and the vehicle traffic, but I've been speaking with my law enforcement officials, and essentially what actually happened here was we had the Salvador Ramos. I'm actually just a couple blocks away where he was living. He ended up shooting his grandma. Salvador then jumps in his car, and on this street, he actually crashes his car down the street, goes into the school, and starts shooting. Now, around 11:30 in the morning is when that shooting was reported. Law enforcement arrived 3 minutes later. Then they encountered Ramos and gunfire exchange, injuring 2 law enforcement officers and fatally wounding Ramos. And just a couple moments ago, Leland, we just had the FBI arrive here, but we're in a small town of Uvalde that doesn't really have much law enforcement. They're calling in law enforcement from the surrounding counties to all be here and to further their investigation. And we've been speaking with locals who have, I mean, they're completely shocked. This is a very small community. This stuff doesn't happen, especially here in Uvalde. It's a really tight-knit community, 35,000 people. And right now, Leland, the scenes are very sad. I arrived here and folks are crying on their phones. I spoke to the mayor, Don McLaughlin, who says there's still several parents who don't know whether the kids are missing or deceased. And we will have those updates when they come.
You talk about Don McLaughlin. I've spoken to him so often about the crisis on the border. And my first thoughts when I heard about this were a town of just 16,000 people where you know that everybody knows everybody, and the people you're seeing crying, they're either related to someone who died, they know someone who died well, they know a parent who no longer has a child. Give me this timeline, because it's the first moments we're hearing of it. He shoots his grandmother not far from where you are, crashes his truck. Do they have any idea why he targeted this school, or if he did? And then take us through from the first gunshots at the school to when law enforcement arrived, only 3 minutes.
Yeah, so right now, Leland, we're still waiting for the exact information of why he entered the school. Now, when Ramos shot his grandma, he immediately jumped into the truck, drove down here, and crashed his car. When he did crash, 2 residents actually came out from the noise and were actually shot at. They ran back in their home. That's when Ramos went straight into the school. The grandma that he shot actually appeared at the hospital, and she died at the hospital. And only took 3 minutes for law enforcement here to arrive. They had the Uvalde sheriffs, along with the local police, arrive, and like I said, they exchanged gunfire with Ramos, and 2 of those officers are injured. Leland, we had a Border Patrol agent actually respond to the shooting here at the Robb Elementary. That Border Patrol agent is injured as well. We're just waiting from our sources to hear whether those injuries are life-threatening or not. But still, there's still a lot of commotion, a lot of confusion. There's supposed to be a press conference earlier, Leland, and that's been just pushed back because just all the confusion. There's many parents still, they don't know whether their kids have been deceased or been missing. Let me just kind of move out the scene here. You kind of look. FBI, like I said before, just arrived moments ago, so we'll be waiting an update from the FBI as well.
Watching now a couple of different possible press conferences that are coming up, and we're waiting to hear from the president. Jorge, stand by. Now to Uvalde, where it looks like the police chief or sheriff is just starting to speak. We're trying to
time in our district. So please know the investigation is not complete. We will only be sharing a statement with you, not providing questions. We greatly appreciate your patience and understanding. Here to share a statement and not take questions is our Uvalde CISD Chief of Police, Pete Arredondo.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, briefly, as of now, we're still working on this active investigation. Once we're able to provide information to the families, we will do so. First and foremost, obviously, our priorities is to get information to our families and give them some information. So please bear with us in regards to that. Secondly, once we do get some information that we can release to the public, we will be doing that. So please know once we do get some information, we will share that with you and call another press conference. Let me assure you, the intruder is deceased, and we are not actively looking for another individual or any other suspects in this case. We definitely ask you all to keep the families that are involved in your prayers. Thank you so much.
Here to provide a statement and not take any questions is our Superintendent, Dr. Hal Harrell.
Good evening. This was a tragic and senseless event today, and my heart was broke today. Our hearts and thoughts and prayers are with all our families as we go through this day and days to come. A few announcements that we need to make is beginning tomorrow at 10 a.m., we will have grief counseling and support at the Civic Center for our students, our staff, community members, anybody that needs to come at that time. And we may be there more than one day, may be there several days. Our ROB staff will meet at 8 a.m. at the Civic Center as well. We will begin with visiting with them and seeing what those needs are. School will be closed. The school year's done. We will have no school tomorrow or Thursday. All activities are canceled throughout the district. I know graduation is on people's mind. We will come out with a notice on that at a later time. All the staff members, they will report to their campuses, other than Rob campus, which will come to the Civic Center. Again, my heart was broken today. We're a small community, and we'll need your prayers to get us through this. Thank you.
Again, this is a tragic event in our community. We are very sorry that we cannot provide you more information, but greatly appreciate your patience and understanding during this very difficult time. We ask that you pray for all of the families affected. Thank you, and be safe.
Press conference in Uvalde, Texas. The police chief saying, in fact, that there is a lot of information the families don't know, which speaks exactly to what Jorge Ventura said, that there are probably a number of families that do not know now, about 6 or 7 hours after the gunshots first rang out, whether or not their children are among the 18 children that have been killed, 2 adults, as we watch a number of the SWAT teams pull in. Jorge, stand by on the other side of the break, a little bit more of what you've been able to gather from some of those on the scene. We'll be right back. Back as the sun sets in Uvalde, Texas. The Texas Department of Public Safety now says 18 children shot and killed, the worst school shooting in a decade. One teacher killed, the gunman as well deceased. They believe he acted alone. Now comes the long task of creating the answers to what happened, why, the heroes, what went well and what went wrong, and what was missed in Uvalde, Texas, a town of 16,000 people, where we understand there are at least a number of parents who do not know if their children are among the 18 dead. The White House on your screen right. The president just arrived back from Asia, scheduled to speak just about 20 minutes from now. Chris Hahn, we bring in. Chris, how do you strike the balance here of being the comforter-in-chief without, and providing answers to the nation, without making it political, as Kamala Harris already got dangerously close to doing?
Yeah, I think it's very, very difficult. I think if anybody could do it, Joe Biden can. This is an area he excels in, having had so much tragedy in his life. But I also think that there is some call, when you're in a position of power, to do something about this epidemic of gun violence in America. And people on the left might want to blame guns. People on the right want to blame mental health or other factors. But needless to say, America is home to 40% of the world's guns, yet only 4% of the world's population. And we have more gun violence and mass shootings in this country by far than any other industrial, any other modern nation on this planet. So there's got to be some policy proposed at some point. And if we wait for a regular period of time, a normal period to mourn, we're never going to propose anything.
Well, there's that side of it. There's the other side of it that we've been in these situations countless times, you and I talking about it, the American people experiencing and watching pictures like this, and yet we never get any farther on it. Take us through politically the next few days, at least for the president. You have to imagine he's going to go to Uvalde at some point and meet with the families. Something that he excels at. And a number of the other people, Colby Hall, who we had on earlier, talked about that as well. For a president who has seemed so out of place in dealing with the crises that we've seen, and you and I have talked about over the past couple of months, if you watched then Vice President Biden with the victims of Sandy Hook a decade ago, he was supernatural in that role. What about him makes him so good, and what about that will we see tonight?
Well, obviously, he's had multiple tragedies in his life. When he first became a senator, he lost his wife and one of his child. He lost his son, Beau, to cancer. The president has lived through a lot of tragedy, personal tragedy, and, of course, being in public life for as long as he's been in, he's seen all of these tragedies time and time again. So he's had to relate to his constituents, to people around the country. So I expect that over the next couple of days, he will absolutely excel in that role, specifically one-on-one with the individual families who've lost their children, who, you know, the unspeakable loss of a child is something that President Biden knows all too well, and will be very good at comforting them.
You think about that, really, in terms of that role as comforter-in-chief. There's only a few presidents who've had it. George H.W. Bush went through that and able to experience that and relate in modern times to someone. And now President Biden, I can't help but think, and I have to say it because we saw it on the screen, but the live pictures of a hearse going in and the unthinkable nature of families just not knowing tonight whether their children are alive or dead. Chris, thank you.
It's sickening. It's sickening. Yes,
it makes it impossible to almost think of anything else at this very sad moment. Chris, thank you. There are so many things we still don't know tonight. Now, just about 7 hours since the shots rang out. Marnie Hughes is with me. She'll be with all of you the next 2 hours, and then we'll be back a little later. And Marnie, as I looked at that picture, the only thing you can think about is the parents of that child inside the hearse, and at the same time, that it's impossible to explain evil in this world.
My stomach just went up into my throat, and I lost my breath when I saw that, Leland. As a parent, you send your child to school, and you expect to pick them up at the end of the day, and to see a hearse arrive for 18 children who were killed today is emotionally overwhelming. We cannot comprehend it, but we're going to do our best over the next few hours to bring you the facts. Leland, thank you. It is time for Prime.
Tonight, breaking news in Texas. A gunman opens fire inside an elementary school with young kids inside.
He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly.
Sending first responders racing to the scene. And parents frantic for answers. A city facing an unimaginable tragedy as the president prepares to address the nation. A special 2-hour edition of NewsNation Prime starts right now.
Live from NewsNation headquarters, this is NewsNation Prime with Marnie Hughes.
This is going to be a hard night, especially for the families in Uvalde, Texas. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Marnie Hughes, and we come to you this evening with a heavy heart. Innocent lives lost. 18 children, 1 adult, and a gunman are dead just days before summer vacation. The pool in Uvalde was set to open this weekend for summer. A gunman walked into Robb Elementary School in Uvalde this morning and started shooting. There are injuries as well tonight. People fighting for their lives, and that includes a 10-year-old girl. These are the heartbreaking images of families mourning loss and trying to understand what has happened. For the next 2 hours, we are going to share with you what we know, what happened today inside that school. We'll talk about the gunman, who is also dead, and his past, and we'll also honor the victims as best we can, the lives lost, their families, and this community, this small, tight-knit community left in shock. In just moments, President Biden will be addressing those families. He'll also be addressing you and the nation from the White House, and when that happens, we will bring it to you live. But first, we want to go to correspondent Robert Sherman on the scene outside Robb Elementary School tonight in Uvalde. And Robert, we are learning new details even at this hour, but there is so much we still don't know, and that includes who we have lost at this hour. All right, I understand we're having some technical difficulties hearing from Robert. There is a delay, but we'll work to continue to get him. What we know at this hour is the president will be addressing the nation approximately at 7:15 Central Time. That is 8:15 Eastern. The White House has ordered flags at half-staff at this hour. The gunman, here is what we know. He is 18-year-old Salvador Ramos. He lived in Uvalde, Texas. According to Governor Greg Abbott, Ramos shot his grandmother before today's school shooting. Again, the gunman is dead tonight. Responding officers, we are told by authorities, shot him. Those officers were also struck by gunfire. Thankfully, no serious injuries to the heroes who rushed to that scene. We are also hearing from authorities that the gunman had a handgun and possibly a rifle. Tonight, here is Robert Sherman.
The horrors of today began with 18-year-old Salvador Ramos shooting and killing his grandmother. Few details have been released about what started his violent spree, but we know he then took off in his truck. Ramos then ditched his truck and ran to Robb Elementary School, where 2nd through 4th graders were in class. The school year was set to end Thursday.
When parents drop their kids off at school, they have every expectation to know that they're going to be able to pick their child up when that school day ends. And there are families who are in mourning right now, and the state of Texas is in mourning with them for the reality that these parents are not going to be able to pick up their children.
Ramos had a gun and ammo on him, and more reportedly left behind in his truck. Once police shot and killed Ramos, the rush was on to move the wounded to hospitals. Some airlifted to San Antonio, 85 miles to the east.
The suspect did act alone during this heinous crime.
It is unclear if Ramos intended to go to the school or if it was a place to go once his truck crashed. Governor Abbott said the gunman lived in Uvalde, went to school at Robb Elementary, and was a U.S. citizen. The school guided parents to the Civic Center to be reunited with their children. The pain of worrying and waiting could be seen on their faces, fearing the worst until told otherwise. And while shootings at elementary schools are not as common as other school shootings, the violence against our nation's young is getting a lot of attention. Earlier today...
What are we doing? What are we doing? Just days after a shooter walked into a grocery store to gun down African American patrons, we have another Sandy Hook on our hands. What do we...
And Marty, you hear the emotion in that senator's voice there. I can tell you that being here on the ground, you can just walk onto this site and you can just feel the heaviness that is in the air. This is a community of 16,000 people. There are homes all around here. People heard what happened here earlier today. There are people who tell us that they've lived here their whole lives and they are just awestruck by what has happened, incredulous by this devastation. Marnie?
Robert, I know, as people at home know, it's a fluid situation, and we're getting bits and pieces of information from authorities because their focus right now is on the injured and the families who are involved. What can you tell us, though, about the reunification process? Are they saying anything about the families who don't yet know if their child is alive or dead?
And that is fluid. We know that some families have been reunited, but we know that there are also other families that we've been hearing from who are frantically trying to find more, and they don't know. They don't know anything. And it is that unknown which is so unnerving to this community. You talk to people around here, is that they want to know what happened. They want to know the exact cause of this whole situation, but they don't. And that's the hardest thing to understand, is that how this could happen here in this small, peaceful community in Texas. Marnie?
And Robert, it is heartbreaking, and as I said a moment ago, emotionally overwhelming to see that hearse outside of Robb Elementary behind you. Talk to us a little bit about the investigation and what you see before you and around the school in terms of the authorities still on hand and what they may be doing right now.
I'm sorry, Marty. The cell signal here is not so strong, so I missed a bit of your statement there. But you know what we do know is, you know, these latest numbers that we've been able to gather from Texas DPS. We do know the situation that you know how devastating this has been to the community, to all of these families. But we also know that there are just so many people who are desperately looking for answers, wanting to know more of what's happening with their family. And again, you know, it's important to pump the brakes on this whole story as information slowly trickles in. We're going with what we do know with certainty. Marnie?
Describe for us what you're seeing, Robert, right outside the school at this hour with investigators and authorities who remain on scene.
Right, so we do see a pretty heavy law enforcement presence here that's behind us. You see a lot of local officials here. Again, small community, so small departments that they have here. A heavy influence of the Texas State Troopers, specifically that's the Texas Department of Safety, or more colloquially known as Texas DPS. You're going to be hearing that term a lot over the next couple of days. Governor Abbott has said is that they will be utilizing as many of the state resources as possible, including the Texas Rangers. That's the investigative side of the state's legal authority here in the state of Texas. So there is a significant presence here. We saw helicopters flying overhead. We see more and more troopers and officers arriving here seemingly by the hour. And this is, of course, not going away anytime soon until we start to get a lot more of these answers as to what happened inside that elementary school to all those children.
Heartbreaking for all of those victims and those related to them, but also for the first responders today who will never be able to erase what has happened in the last few hours from their minds. Robert Sherman, stand by. We'll be coming back to you. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, as Robert was mentioning, is calling today's tragedy incomprehensible. And it is, because hours after families learned of a shooting at their children's elementary school, some of them, as we now know, are still waiting for those answers, if their loved ones are okay and will they survive. Many parents and kids were taken to a family reunification center, while the injured were rushed to area hospitals locally and in a distance by air. Today's shooting is now tied for the deadliest school shooting in state history. That's a list you don't want to be on, and one of the deadliest in our nation's past. Here is Governor Greg Abbott just a few hours ago.
When parents drop their kids off at school, they have every expectation to know that they're going to be able to pick their child up when that school day ends. And there are families who are in mourning right now, and the state of Texas is in mourning with them for the reality that these parents are not going to be able to pick up their children.
I want to welcome in now a man named Hugo Avila. His cousin works at Robb Elementary and was shot today during the attack. He is live joining us on the phone. Hugo, thank you so much for giving us some time. First of all, tell me about your cousin, what you can share.
So far, as I'm told, they are. She is out of surgery and is going to be okay. Thank God. And that's all the news that we wanted to hear, and that's what we have so far. Yeah.
How old is she?
I don't know her exact age. I think she's in her early 50s.
Was she a teacher at school?
She was a teacher there. Robb Elementary. I grew up. I was raised there in Uvalde, and Robb Elementary is usually 4th and 5th grade. So, but I don't know exactly which 4th or 5th grade that she taught.
We're being told it's 2nd through 4th grade.
2nd through 4th. Okay.
Tell me a little bit about your cousin tonight, and anything else that you can share about your family.
Well, it's a really a kind soul, a very quiet but very loving individual. Which is why she's been a teacher for so long, and it's so befitting of a person like her, of her character. And but we're from a pretty big family. She's from a family of 9 siblings, I believe, or 8 siblings. And she loved, and so this is a pretty intense moment for everybody.
Hugo, where were you today when you heard the news of what had happened?
I cut trees and do cement, so I was in the middle of a job, and I get a phone call from somebody from my hometown, from the town I live in Evansville, Indiana, and saying, asking me if my family's okay, and I'm like, I believe so. Why would they not be, right? And so they told me about the shootings, and I was like, really, in Uvalde? Like, that's such a small, tight-knit community. You would never fathom that would happen. Well, anywhere, but not Uvalde. I was shocked. And then, so I called my mother, and then she's the one that confirmed and said that my cousin had been shot in the stomach and the abdomen. And that's when I was like, what? That's crazy. I can't fathom. This whole thing is crazy. It's hard to process it. But I'm just glad she's okay. That's the most important thing, and I feel for everyone else who wasn't so fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know the extent of her injuries? You said shot in the abdomen. Anything else you can tell us?
That's it. She was in surgery for I believe an hour or two, and based on the timeline in which I called, and they called me and they let me know. But she was, I believe, airlifted to San Antonio, to BAMC Hospital in San Antonio, and her brother, my cousin Hector, is the one that relayed the message to me, and while he was there in the waiting room, and said that she was out of surgery and is going to be okay.
Has she been able to talk yet? Has she been able to share any information with those who are with her?
Not that I know of. Like I said, I'm in Indiana, and they're in San Antonio with her, and it's a really, like I said, a very tight-knit family, and they just I can't imagine what they're going through there,
It's emotional for all of us to have someone who's right in the center of it. Hugo, I can't even begin to imagine. Are you comfortable sharing your cousin's name and anything else about her?
Yeah, her name is Elsa Avila. She's a teacher there at Robb Elementary, and such a beautiful individual, such a caring woman, and so that this would happen to someone or to anyone, period. But it's a family member, and so I keep singling her out, and but yeah, that's all I can say about her. And yeah.
It's so emotional. I know it's going to take some time for your feelings to sink in. Hugo, Avila, and to your cousin Elsa tonight. We are praying for your family. Thank you for giving us some of your time, and please stay in touch as we continue to think about all of those families. Before I let you go, Hugo, how many years did your cousin work at Robb Elementary? Do you know?
I don't know exactly that, but it's been a while. It's been years, and like I said, she's very dedicated to her job, it seems, and so like I said, people there in Uvalde, we stay there. You know, we make the most of our beautiful little town, but she's been there for a little while. You know, I'm sure she's loved and appreciated there very much.
Mm-hmm. Are there other families around where your cousin is being treated tonight? Have you heard?
I haven't heard that. I have not heard of other people. I know another teacher didn't make it, and you know, it's unfortunate, extremely sad. But
as you watch these images on the screen, Hugo, how do you wrap your mind around what you're seeing and having it be so personal for you?
It's like I said, at times I stop and think, and I mean, it's like, is this really happening? Like in my hometown, like in my small community, everyone knows each other. Everyone like helps each other out. You know, it's a Texas thing. You know, we have our own culture there, and it's it's prominently Hispanic there. So you know, everyone's hardworking, and so I mean, I can't fathom the people who lost their children, who lost a relative, who lost any kind of relation. But it's sad to really see that, and especially at an elementary school like Robb, in such a small community, and the innocent children, the innocent teachers, the innocent victims. It's sad. It's sad. Yeah.
Unfathomable. And it is a Texas thing. The heroes will hear those stories in the hours and days to come. Hugo, Avila, thank you so much again for giving us some time, and to your entire family. Our thoughts are with you and the community of Uvalde tonight.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to bring in now Zina Aguilera. She lives in Uvalde. She's right across from Robb Elementary School. She also attended that school when she was a child. Thank you so much for giving us some time. Just give me your thoughts to begin with, how you're doing tonight, having seen this and have it happen around you.
It's a very sad situation, what's happened here in Uvalde, especially across the street from my home. I've lived in my home for the last 32 years, and never in my world would I imagine that this would happen across the street from my house.
Zina, do you know anyone in the school?
I know a lot of these students, parents. Yes, a lot of the teachers, several of the students. You know, we all know each other through either, you know, somehow or another, through family members, cousins, you know, relatives, you know, just friends.
We do have, I want to let people at home know, there's a slight delay between me and Zina tonight, so just hang in there as we have our conversation. Zina, do you know anyone who was injured or killed today?
I do know. We don't know at this time as to what the outcome is with her. They're still waiting to hear from that. And it's just devastating.
Zina, tell us about Robb Elementary School. I mentioned you were a student there. What does this school mean to you?
It's home. All my brothers, I come from a family of 13, and we all attended Robb Elementary. I grew up a block from the school. We all walked to school every day. I now live across the street for 32 years, and myself, you know, my grandchildren, my daughters went there. Anybody that you can imagine that lives around this neighborhood has come to Robb. Robb was, you know, we all consider ourselves Robb Rangers because that is the mascot of Robb.
The Robb Rangers. Zina, describe for me, living across the street, what you saw today.
Yes. I saw a lot. By the time that I got here, it was already, you know, going on. And by the time I got here, there was a lot of police presence everywhere. Everything was blocked off. Police officers, you know, any type of law enforcement were coming and going with guns drawn, rifles drawn. trying to get to the scene and trying to take cover at the same time. That happened like for an hour. They were letting some students out, trying to get them out of the campus. Parents trying to pick up their children. There was total chaos with that. Finally, they were able to bust some of them out. Others, they were told to take them to the high school, and then eventually they ended up at the Civic Center, and that's where the majority of the children were picked up. Around 1 o'clock, a little bit after 1 o'clock, I was at home sitting at my kitchen table, and from my kitchen table I can actually see all the way back to that particular building. And I saw where they were bringing out a body on a stretcher with 4 police officers carrying him out, and they carried him to the front of the building outside the gate, and they were trying to put him in a police SUV, and they did not. And then they tried putting him again into a fire department truck, a red truck, and they did not put him in that one either. All of a sudden, the ambulance shows up, and they throw him into the ambulance, as quick as they can, and the ambulance takes off. And this is me already standing outside my home looking at all this, And after that, all of a sudden, it just becomes quiet, and you see a lot of the officers, taking off their gear, walking elsewhere, and a lot of, yellow tape going on everywhere,
It's just hard to understand with 2 days left in the school year, and I was reading on the Uvalde city website that the community pool was set to open this weekend for Memorial Day weekend. So many families looking forward to summer and a few months of a break, and this tragedy strikes.
Yes, and graduation is Friday, and just I think a couple of days ago they had, I think last week on Friday, they had like this graduates actually walk through the campuses and show all these little kids, their graduation, they were all in their cap and gown, and all these students, their younger kids, congratulating them, saluting them, and giving them high fives and praising them for being graduates.
It's supposed to be a happy time, but this is a day none of us will forget. Zina Aguilera, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. Our thoughts are with you and everyone else involved tonight. We appreciate you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have continuing coverage. President Biden will be speaking in less than 10 minutes. We will bring that to you live when it happens as he addresses the nation on this sad and somber night across the country. We'll be right back. Continuing coverage from Uvalde, Texas, after a mass shooting at an elementary school happened early this morning. 18 children were killed, one adult also killed, and also the gunman was killed by authorities. Many more injured tonight. As we wait for answers, the investigation is beginning into what happened today. And in the days, weeks, and months leading up to this attack, were there warning signs? Could something more have been done to stop it? What would motivate someone to do something as evil as this? Correspondent Kelly Beeson joining us now with what we know at this hour. And Kelly, I asked those questions knowing full well we may never know the answer to some of them.
You're absolutely right, Marnie, and those are the questions law enforcement are working hard to answer. At a press conference earlier today, officials said they believe the suspect did, in fact, act alone.
Hours after the attack on Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas, questions remain about the motive of the suspect in this case. 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, who allegedly killed his grandmother before heading to the school.
The FBI has consistently reported that 75% of school shooters have been bullied at school previously.
Ellen DeLaura is a former professor at Syracuse University who says some young people who act out in this way have decided to adopt a radical philosophy. For others, it's a way to deal with past trauma, violence or abuse in their home or their community.
They are people who oftentimes have tried to figure out a solution to what it is that they felt while they were in school, and they felt that no adult helped them.
Former FBI agent Phil Andrews says law enforcement officials are now looking to put those pieces of the puzzle together by taking photos of the crime scene, interviewing neighbors, reviewing digital evidence, surveillance videos, and social media, lifting any clue that points to motive or any potential assistance to the suspect.
That's going to give us some insights. There's still going to be probably some gaps, even this evening, as they offer that information in their report. So it could be some time before we learn anything about motive, and it's too early to speculate.
And another former police officer we spoke with says by the end of the week, more evidence will likely emerge to potentially give clarity as to what the motive was in this case, Marty.
All right, Kelly. Continuing coverage, President Biden will be speaking momentarily. We'll bring that to you right after the break, live. 18 children and 1 adult killed in a senseless mass shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas earlier today. And tonight we are learning new information from the Department of Safety in Texas. This also being confirmed on the ground by our reporter that the suspect in today's shooting, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, was armed with a rifle. He also was wearing body armor, and he entered the school firing shots indiscriminately. When law enforcement entered the school, the suspect returned fire. We also know at this hour he shot his grandmother. We do not have an update on her condition. I'd like to welcome in Lieutenant Christopher Olivares with the Texas Department of Public Safety. Thank you for being with us tonight. What more can you add that you all have learned at this hour?
Right, so good evening. Great to be with you. So as we know right now, the suspect was involved in a family disturbance with his grandmother earlier today, in which he did shoot his grandmother. At that point, local law enforcement received a call of a crash and a man with a gun in close proximity where the school's at. At that point, the suspect made entry into the school. At that point, he started shooting children, teachers, anybody that was in his way. He was shooting every single person that was in front of him. We had local law enforcement, brave law enforcement. That's one thing I want to point out, too, and acknowledge that we had brave law enforcement respond to the scene and make entry into this school, in which they were met with gunfire by the suspect. The suspect was wearing some type of body armor, and we had several police officers that were shot. At that point, we had a tactical law enforcement team arrive on scene. Again, they were able to make entry. They were met with gunfire by the suspect. They were able to shoot the suspect, and right now the suspect is deceased. As of right now, we have 18 children that are deceased, as well as 2 adults that are deceased. And right now, we're still waiting on the conditions of the grandmother that was shot earlier today.
Lieutenant, one of the adults who was killed, is that the shooter?
Yes, that's correct. The shooter was shot by law enforcement. As I mentioned earlier, he returned and he shot several police officers that were hit in exchange of gunfire, but the suspect is now deceased.
How quickly were those officers able to get to the scene, and what is their condition tonight?
Right, so as of right now, we do know they're stable. We are, this is still an active investigation. We have our Texas Rangers that are the lead investigators as far as this mass shooting, and we will continue to provide updates as we receive them. As of right now, this is still an active investigation. We're still trying to determine exactly what the motives were and also what type of rifle the suspect was using. We have FBI, ATF on scene as well, so it's a multi-agency cooperation and trying to determine this investigation in this mass shooting.
What more can you tell us about the gunman and his past?
Well, that's a good question. That's one thing that we're trying to determine right now. As I mentioned, it's still active investigation, and that's why we have multiple agencies, FBI, ATF, local, county, as well as state agencies on scene working together to try to determine exactly what took place and what the motives were for this mass shooting.
Was there a pursuit prior to the gunman going into the elementary school before he crashed his truck?
No, that's inaccurate. That's not confirmed. That's why I wanted to clear that up when I mentioned it earlier, that after the disturbance with the grandmother, there was a call for a vehicle that was crashed in which they didn't see the suspect armed with a weapon. That was the initial call that led law enforcement to the school.
And can you confirm, Lieutenant, that this gunman acted alone? Is that something you all have determined at this hour?
That's correct. That's accurate.
What about a be on the lookout alert for the community with this gunman? What more can you tell us about what the community had been informed in the warning that went out?
Well, we're still trying to determine that. I mean, it's still an active investigation, as I mentioned, and that's why we have so many agencies involved together trying to determine exactly what took place, why it took place. And as we receive those updates, we will continue to provide updates as we continue this investigation.
Lieutenant, what more can you share about those who were injured in today's shooting? And at what point do you expect authorities to provide the public and the media with another update on conditions and how folks are doing?
Right, so what I can tell you right now, again, as I mentioned, that, I just want to praise the brave men and women that arrived on scene and actually went into this school to try to, stop any further loss of life by trying to shoot this suspect. And also the families, we have to send our prayers and our condolences to the families as well, the victims and the entire community of Uvalde right now. Right now they need our prayers And we're continuing to work this investigation so we can try to determine the motives, if any.
How did the gunman enter the school, Lieutenant?
Right. So again, we're still trying to determine all those details, as well as trying to determine actually how he was able to make entry, exactly where the shootings took place. As I mentioned, it's still active. We have our Texas Rangers that are leading this investigation right now, and I will continue to provide updates as we receive them.
Do you know, are there security cameras inside the school that will help with evidence?
Well, that's what we're trying to determine right now. So it's a full investigation, a very thorough investigation right now that's being conducted by our Texas Rangers. And as I mentioned, once we receive that information, we will continue to provide updates. But as of right now, that's all the details I have to provide. It's still an active investigation. We want to make sure that we provide accurate information as we go through this investigation.
How are the first responders doing? Our hearts go out to all of those who rushed to the scene, the heroes today. For those that you have talked to, how's everybody doing?
Right, and they are heroes. That's a great point. They are heroes because this is an active shooter situation, and we understand what takes place in these active shooter situations, especially involving schools. And again, just brave men and women that showed up on scene that were met with gunfire. And it's just a perfect example of heroism by these brave men and women of law enforcement to be on the scene and to stop further loss of life. Right now, we do have multiple agencies involved. We have victim services that are here to comfort these officers, and especially the families as well, that it's a very horrific scene, especially these officers that were able to make entry and see the loss of life that was right in front of them.
I want to point out to people who are watching at home, Lieutenant, we're awaiting the president addressing the nation tonight, given what has happened in your community, as families wait to be reunited with their loved ones and try to understand what has gone on. What more can you tell us about the reunification process and what you're telling families who have so many questions?
Right, as I mentioned, it's still an active investigation right now, and of course, we're trying to work with our local law enforcement, our local partners, our county partners as well, to identify those victims and meet with the families as well, and also the students that were involved as well that saw this horrific tragedy that took place. So we're trying to offer as much services as possible by working together to comfort these families, these victims, and also the ones that witnessed the scene.
Tell me what's happening behind you right now. I know that the investigation is ongoing. It will take a while, but the school is closed off with crime scene tape. How long do you expect investigators to be out there? And I do understand school is over for the year now.
Right. I mean, our investigators are going to be here as long as possible. They're going to conduct a thorough investigation to make sure that every question is answered and also to find out exactly why this took place. So they will be out here indefinitely until this investigation is closed, and so we can determine all the details by working with our other partners as well.
All right. Lieutenant Christopher Olivares with the Texas Department of Public Safety, thank you, and to all of the authorities who are on scene trying to make sense of this. And as you mentioned, the investigation will answer a lot of our questions, but maybe not all of them. Lieutenant, thank you again. Just want to get you up to speed on where things stand right now. We are hearing from the White House that the president will step in front of the podium to address the nation in about 2 minutes or less. He is coming back from a trip from Asia. He was informed of the shooting in Uvalde, Texas, en route to the United States, and will be speaking to the country, a commander-in-chief, but tonight you've heard the term comforter-in-chief, and how he will, one, communicate to the people of Uvalde, Texas, the families of the 18 children who were killed today, and the one adult, a staffer at that school. Tom Dempsey is joining me ahead of the president's address. Stand by, Tom. We hear the president is now stepping to the podium. Let's take a listen to President Joe Biden.
Good evening, fellow Americans. I had hoped when I became president I would not have to do this again. Another massacre, Uvalde, Texas, an elementary school, beautiful, innocent, second, third, fourth graders. And how many scores of little children who witness what happened see their friends die as if they're on a battlefield, for God's sake. they'll live with the rest of their lives. There's a lot we don't know yet. There's a lot we do know. The parents who will never see their child again, never have them jump in bed and cuddle with them. Parents who will never be the same. To lose a child is like having a piece of your soul ripped away. There's a hollowness in your chest. You feel like you're being sucked into it and never going to be able to get out. Suffocating. And it's never quite the same. It's a feeling shared by the siblings and the grandparents and the family members and the community that's left behind. Scripture says, Jill and I have talked about this in different contexts, in other contexts. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. So many crushed spirits. So tonight, I ask the nation to pray for them, give the parents and siblings the strength in the darkness they feel right now. As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done? It's been 3,448 days, 10 years since I stood up at a high school in Connecticut, a grade school in Connecticut, where another gunman massacred 26 people, including 20 first graders at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Since then, there have been over 900 incidents of gunfires reported on school grounds. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Santa Fe High School in Texas. Oxford High School in Michigan. The list goes on, and the list grows when it includes mass shootings at places like movie theaters, houses of worship, as we saw just 10 days ago, the grocery store in Buffalo, New York. I am sick and tired of it. We have to act. And don't tell me we can't have an impact on this carnage. I spent my career as a senator and a vice president working to pass common sense gun laws. We can and won't prevent every tragedy, but we know they work and have positive impact. When we passed the assault weapons ban, mass shootings went down. When the law expired, mass shootings tripled. The idea that an 18-year-old kid can walk into a gun store and buy 2 assault weapons is just wrong. What in God's name do you need an assault weapon for except to kill someone? Deer aren't running through the forest with Kevlar vests on, for God's sake. It's just sick. And the gun manufacturers have spent 2 decades aggressively marketing assault weapons, which make them the most and largest profit. For God's sake, we have to have the courage to stand up to the industry. Here's what else I know. Most Americans support common sense laws, common sense gun laws. I just got off a trip from Asia, meeting with Asian leaders. And I learned of this while I was on the aircraft. And what struck me on that 17-hour flight, what struck me was these kinds of mass shootings rarely happen anywhere else in the world. Why? They have mental health problems. They have domestic disputes in other countries. They have people who are lost. But these kinds of mass shootings never happen with the kind of frequency they happen in America. Why? Why are we willing to live with this carnage? Why do we keep letting this happen? Where in God's name is our backbone to have the courage to deal with it and stand up to the lobbies. It's time to turn this pain into action for every parent, for every citizen in this country. We have to make it clear to every elected official in this country, it's time to act. It's time for those who obstruct or delay or block the common sense gun laws. We need to let you know that we will not forget. We can do so much more. We have to do more. Our prayer tonight was those parents lying in bed and trying to figure out, will I be able to sleep again? What do I say to my other children? What happens tomorrow? May God bless the loss of innocent life on this sad day. And may the Lord be near the brokenhearted and save those crushed in spirit, because they're going to need a lot of help and a lot of our prayers. God love you.
President Biden, along with First Lady Jill Biden, addressing the nation tonight, a sad and somber day after 18 children and one adult at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, were killed by a gunman who walked in wearing body armor and firing shots indiscriminately at small children. The president addressing the nation tonight as a leader. He also addressed the nation as a father who has lost a child, saying to lose a child is like having a piece of your soul ripped away. There is a hollowness in your chest. It is suffocating, and it is never quite the same. The president spoke to the families, and he turned to his faith. And I'll go out on a limb and say a lot of us are doing that tonight, because we cannot comprehend this evil. Today, in Sandy Hook, in Santa Fe, at Parkland, it doesn't make sense. We cannot make sense of this evil. The president talked about common sense gun laws, and you're going to be hearing a lot of that in the news in the coming days, weeks, and years. He mentioned a number, 3,448 days, 10 years since he said he stood up at Sandy Hook Elementary after countless lives were lost that day. Children, 900 incidents of gunfire at schools since then. We may never know what happened today in Uvalde and why, but the president tonight, working to comfort the nation, flags at the White House at half-staff, and for the parents tonight, the president said our prayer is for those parents lying in bed trying to figure out, will they be able to sleep again? What do I say to my other children, and what happens tomorrow? Our thoughts and prayers are with all of those involved today. We will do our best to add perspective and bring you the facts first on this tragic and sad day. And I think about the children and the staff who were inside that school the moment the gunman came in, and they lived through this tragedy, but they will never forget it. I think we all just need to take a breath for a moment. I mentioned an hour ago it was going to be a hard night for all of us, and it becomes incredibly hard the more we learn about what happened earlier today at that school in Texas. I have 3 kids. I send them off to school every morning, and I do, as a news person, think about what happens, because we live in a society now where we almost have to think at some point it might happen to us. It might happen to your family. It will hit close to home. And so this is when we unite as a country, as a community, to fight for answers, to try to comprehend and understand exactly what has gone on. I'm going to turn to my faith, and I hope we all turn to each other. And I hope we don't politicize this. I hope we let it sink in that it was a tragedy, and let the families involved grieve as we wait for answers. All right, Tom Dempsey is joining us from Washington. Tom, I mentioned that the president addressed the nation as a president tonight, but also as a father, and his role was to offer compassion and leadership and understanding. And it was difficult and frustrating as we all watched the president try to deliver that message.
Absolutely, Marnie. And something that you said, a few minutes ago was just, we need to unite as a country. One thing I noticed with this speech, President never said anything about Republicans or the GOP. You were talking about uniting the country. Maybe, just maybe, this will lead to some sort of change when it comes to trying to prevent mass shootings. The exact quote that the president said, "When in God's name will we step up to the gun lobby?" He didn't say Republicans or the GOP in that. And, I think the president, as you said, the emotional level of this, he hearkened back to the death of his son. And as you said, that feeling of your soul being ripped away, the president really, keeping the parents close in his prayers tonight and talking to the American public about just that. There's the emotional side of the speech we just heard. The country is heartbroken tonight. We keep hearing these sound bites from parents and the interviews with these parents who won't be able to tuck in their children tonight. The emotional side of this, and then, the legislative side to this. What could happen as a result of this awful, awful tragedy that happened today in Texas? For our viewers sitting at home watching this broadcast right now, they may have seen this, the details coming down, feeling that heartbreak. But then if they go on Facebook or Twitter, they're seeing some of the outrage people are feeling, the outrage that once again we are covering a mass shooting happening inside a school where innocent children died. And, I think the president, when I was saying the emotional side of this, Marnie, and also the legislative side to this, the president really kind of touched up on sort of what he has done in the past. He is very, experienced when it comes to, what it's like to be on Congress following a mass shooting, what it's like to be in the Oval Office after a mass shooting. Keep in mind, just days ago, the president was in Buffalo talking with victims' families, people who died at the hands of a white supremacist in a Buffalo supermarket mass shooting, calling for an end, the president, to, a ban on assault weapons. And then months ago, last year, he was in Atlanta covering a mass shooting that happened in Atlanta, and it targeted Asian Americans there. And going back to when he was vice president under President Obama, he was one of the champions that President Obama put in charge to enact, gun legislation, calling for, expanded background checks to all of this. And again, one of the things I wrote down, going back all the way back to 1994 in this speech tonight, the president bringing up the assault weapons ban that he was a champion for. And Marnie, again, that was passed in 1994, and he brought up how it expired in 2004. And I think a big question Americans are going to ask following, again, like I said, for our viewers at home tonight, they log on to Facebook, maybe in conversations right around the dinner table tonight, Marnie, talking about what's going to happen as a result of this. What sort of change are we going to see? And I think we saw the president kind of confronting some of those questions tonight. What are we going to do about this tonight? And, again, that quote that stood out to me, when in God's name do we stand up to the gun lobby? The president really asking that open-ended tonight, what is going to happen? And again, as you were saying, Marty, one last point about all this. I don't think he ever mentioned once Republicans or the GOP tonight. So trying to maybe find some sort of common ground with legislation, the president kind of touching up on that tonight.
Yeah, a moment to unify the nation amidst tragedy and pain. Tom Dempsey live in our nation's capital tonight. Tom, thank you. The president saying his prayers tonight are with the parents. He said, may the Lord be near the brokenhearted because they are going to need a lot of help. We're going to take a short break, but on this night, hug the people you love. Tell them that you love them. There's nothing more important than that. We'll be right back.
act alone during this heinous crime.
It is unclear if Ramos intended to go to the school or if it was a place to go once his truck crashed. Governor Abbott said the gunman lived in Uvalde, went to school at Robb Elementary, and was a U.S. citizen. The school guided parents to the Civic Center to be reunited with their children. The pain of worrying and waiting could be seen on their faces, fearing the worst until told otherwise. And while shootings at elementary schools are not as common as other school shootings, the violence against our nation's young is getting a lot of attention. Earlier today...
What are we doing? What are we doing? Just days after a shooter walked into a grocery store to gun down African American patrons, we have another Sandy Hook on our hands. What are we doing?
So you're hearing from a lot of folks in Washington talking about the political implications of what has happened today, calling for policy. And it is so important to remember, Marnie, we don't know those details. We don't know exactly what was going on in this 18-year-old man's life. We do not know how he was able to acquire a firearm. We do not know the motive behind this at this point. So you do have people in Washington and around the country calling for some form of change. We don't know enough details in order to know what